The Cardinals get their guy last night, but the work has just begun. 2 more days of the NFL draft in front of us. Welcome into the Friday edition of the Lunch Break here on KDUS AM 1060, streaming on the KDUS AM 1060 app, and you can watch the show on our YouTube channel. Chris Schubert with you for the next 2 hours. Evan behind the glass. A lot to react to from last night because all of the mystery is over, or most of the mystery is over. 32 picks down, 6 more rounds to go, more picks for us to dissect on Monday, but it was all about what the Cardinals did with number 16 overall, and I think they, for the first time in the Monty Ossenfort era, went for substance over sizzle.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
You saw the way the board was beginning to fall. Some of the names that we discussed here on the program. Kelvin Banks, gone. Mykel Williams, gone. Tyler Booker, I said I wouldn't take him at 16. Jerry Jones in Dallas said, hold my beer. Here you go. We're going to take him at 12. Just name after name after name. Kenneth Grant off the board. What were the Cardinals going to do with the 16th overall pick? They decided to go with the defensive tackle at Ole Miss, Walter Nolen, with the 16th overall pick. One of the guys they brought in on a 30 visit. That should have been a dead giveaway. But more importantly, I think the Cardinals went for substance over sizzle. This is not a sexy pick. This is not a pick that's going to get everybody super excited like the last couple of years. And when I say substance over sizzle, don't mistake that for me thinking that they made the wrong pick last year, or that they made the wrong pick in 2023 when they took Paris Johnson Jr. But let me explain what I mean by substance over sizzle. The first year, a lot of sizzle. Why? Monty maneuvering in his first draft, trading out of 3, then trading back up and making sure that he landed his guy in Paris Johnson. The sizzle of maneuvering, the sizzle of those draft night videos of him working the phones and getting everybody excited of the new GM in town. There's a new sheriff in town for the Arizona Cardinals, and he is not afraid to be bold. He is not afraid to be aggressive. He is not afraid to make moves. And we were all excited, not just because the Cardinals got Paris Johnson Jr., but the way they went about it. You felt like there was an adult in the room. You felt like, because the Steve Keim era didn't necessarily end on a good note, you felt like there was somebody in control who lived, breathed, was excited for this moment, and was willing to wheel and deal, and everybody just loved what they saw. Sizzle. Everybody loved the optics. Everybody loved those videos that came out after the draft of their GM wheeling and dealing on the phone, offering trade packages back and forth, hanging up the phone, calling another GM, and working the phones on draft night. Everybody loved it. Sizzle. Good player, 5-pillar position, but sizzle. Last year, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., the entire board available to the Arizona Cardinals. They are not a team that was going to be in the quarterback race. The entire board available to them. They went with Marvin Harrison Jr., whose name provides sizzle, whose position provides sizzle. And yes, while it is a 5-pillar position, again, sizzle over substance. This year, not picking inside the top 5, not picking inside the top 10, there was really not a big opportunity for sizzle. You had to go substance. And the Cardinals, they went substance. They took a defensive lineman. They took a trench player. They took somebody that many fans probably didn't watch a lot of Walter Nolen like they did Marvin Harrison Jr., didn't watch a lot of Walter Nolen like they did Kyler Murray when the Cardinals took him number 1 overall. But this is a meat and potatoes pick in a meat and potatoes draft. The strength of this draft, the trenches. Look at the results last night, 1 through 32. See how many people along the offensive line, the defensive line, and the edge position went last night. Meat and potatoes, substance, the trenches, the lines, where you win and lose football games. And the Cardinals, they sat back. They let the board come to them. They didn't trade out of the pick. We'll talk about that decision a little bit later on here in the program. And they comfortably took one of the best defensive line prospects in this draft class. Again, No sizzle, not flashy. They didn't trade back into the first round like the Giants did to take Jackson Dart, right? They didn't do what the Jags and the Browns did inside the top 5. That surprised us all. That trade that the Jags made to move up and get Travis Hunter, they didn't have any sizzle like that. They just made a good, smart football decision. They let the board come to them, and they took a player at a position of need. I know I wanted a wide receiver. You all heard me talk about that. But I said defensive line would not bother me in the slightest because you have a veteran-laden group there, and getting somebody – can you imagine what this is going to look like if Darius Robinson reaches his potential and Walter Nolen reaches his potential? You've got your next Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell right now in the building. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, I would give this an A+. I know some people wanted edge. I know some people, like myself, wanted wide receiver. But I can't fault a team for going into the trenches and grabbing a player like Walter Nolen. I didn't think he was going to be there at 16, but they did a fantastic job landing their player. So an A+ the grade from me. And again, the last 2 years for the Cardinals has been about sizzle. It has been about the flair. It has been about the drama, the pomp and circumstance. This year, quiet, meat and potatoes. We're not going to – you ever go out for your birthday and they come over with the cake and everybody's singing and dancing and celebrating for you? That's what the Cardinals draft has been the last couple of years. This year, they went out for their birthday dinner. They didn't tell the waiter or the waitress that it was their birthday, and they just brought the dessert. They brought the steak. They brought the meat and potatoes, and everybody enjoyed a nice meal. That's what the Cardinals did last night. I loved it.
Yeah, and I thought it was great to see them not panic. Like, this board went differently than I think you and I had expected, especially as we got into really that 9 area of how is this going to fall. We talked about Banks getting down to 16. We talked about Mykel Williams. Tyler Booker was another name that came up so many times. Stick to your board. Don't panic. Don't go off script. That was good to see as well.
Well, and the other part of it, too, is we got some drama early with the Jags and the Browns making their trade. Just like, and I sent you this tweet right before the show. I don't know if you saw this, but
I did.
Adam Schefter pointed this out. Everybody wants to poo-poo this movie, but the Jags and the Browns working a draft night deal sounds like the plot of a really good movie about the NFL draft.
They didn't give up 3 firsts.
No, but in draft day, they gave up 3 seconds. It was 3 seconds to give up the first round pick. Again, I thought, Sonny Weaver got good value in that trade, but it life imitates art, which was the way Adam Schefter wrote the tweet. I thought that was funny. But you saw early on the chaos. You saw early on the drama, the spectacle that is the NFL draft. Jacksonville, they wanted to keep the draft, quote, electric, and they certainly did by giving up what they gave up to move up to number 2 to get Travis Hunter. The Browns moved down, and the Browns then are the spot. Everybody thought Mason Graham to the Jags at 5 was a lock for the longest time. And then when we heard all of the speculation about them potentially wanting to spice things up, everyone was like, oh, Ashton Genty, Teteroa McMillan. That's where they're going to go. Well, they had one more trick up their sleeve. It was to move up for Travis Hunter. The Browns moved down. They gained an additional first next year, so they're armed with 2 firsts, and they got Mason Graham, and that kind of threw everything into flux where you were trying to find a Mason Graham landing spot before. It just ended up being the Browns a couple spots down. But I thought the Cardinals did an excellent, excellent job last night. And I'll use your word, Evan. They didn't panic. They just were comfortable with where they were at. We knew trading up wasn't going to happen. They only had 6 picks, right? They didn't have the draft capital, and I don't think they're interested in diving into next year's pool of picks to move up. So, because you could very easily have panicked. Banks off the board. Booker off the board. Mykel Williams off the board. I mean, it's easy to be like, is anybody we like going to be on this board at 16? But they trusted their process. They trusted their board, and they got a guy that they loved in Walter Nolen. And when they do these press conferences, everybody, oh, this is the guy we wanted. This is the dream scenario. I don't know where Walter Nolen was on their big board. I don't know where they had him. But I love this pick. I love the approach of going for the meat and potatoes, going for the trenches. And even after you spent the money all offseason long on defense, you didn't let that stop you from drafting a really good young defensive player that can help you moving forward. So I love the approach. I love the patience. And I enjoyed watching the Cardinals just be calm, cool, and collected last night.
I agree 100%. And like you said, the way this board came out, things changed pretty early, and it caused a shakeup in the top 10. I thought Graham was going to get to maybe 10, maybe 11 yesterday and a couple days before that, even though we had heard 5. And it just didn't go out that way. And with no quarterbacks other than Ward all the way up until 16, we also talked about how those players that the Cardinals were interested in weren't going to fall if quarterbacks didn't go. And they didn't. And okay, don't make a crazy move. Trust our board, and they made the pick.
Yeah, and again, it would have been easy to panic. I mean, I'm just looking. 9, Kelvin Banks goes to the Saints. 11, Michael Williams goes to the 49ers. 12, Tyler Booker goes to the Cowboys. 13, Kenneth Grant goes to the Dolphins. 15, Jalen Walker. I mean, just guys that we thought made sense for the Cardinals positionally and where they're going to be picking all just went in front of them. It was a run on players that we thought made sense for the Cardinals. You knew Nolen was still on the board. Jahdae Barron was still on the board. My guy, Derek Harmon, was still on the board. Matthew Golden was still on the board. So they did have options. But they stayed in their spot, and they made what I thought was a really good selection. And again, for the first time since Monty has gotten here, I thought he went more for substance. Just a nice, easy, laid-back, calm, cool, collected approach, not looking for the buzz, the headlines of wheeling and dealing in year one, and then taking the top wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. And again, just taking Marvin Harrison Jr. on its own generates headlines because of who his dad was or who his dad is. So that was the sizzle the last couple of years. Just good old-fashioned meat and potatoes. Give me a guy that's a disruptor in the middle. Give me a guy that's going to be an absolute just fiend up front. Just is willing to go to war and is just going to go to battle every single rep. Now, there are questions about Nolan's love for football. I know, though, that there was some concerns about that. I get it, but you'd have to think the Cardinals weeded those concerns out during their 30 visit, during any other time they've talked to him, during their background work here. They feel really comfortable in the job that they've done. So I'd give it an A+. I really liked the job that they did last night, to just be patient, let the board come to them, and then land a player that makes so much sense for what they're trying to do and what their identity is as a football team under Jonathan Gannon. So an A+ here. You want to give a grade?
I'll give him an A. I think A is fair.
Harsher grader than I am today.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I'm not a huge draft grade guy.
Oh, well, then you picked a bad day to be on the program because this leads right into my teas.
No, but it's hard. It's hard to give a draft grade for a guy who's never played. Like, I don't know who's going to quit. Like, who's not going to show up.
I mean, but you understand, right? You understand that the reason why we do draft grades.
I'm a huge nerd.
Like, that's just what we do. Like,
yeah,
we overreact to everything.
What draft grade did you give Isaiah Simmons? Like, this guy can do it all.
You know what? That's a great question, because I think I was on the air when Isaiah Simmons got drafted. I don't remember. I probably didn't love it.
Really?
My guess is I probably didn't love it.
I watched that kid at Clemson and was like, this guy's generational.
But I could be wrong. I could be just making it up to try to make myself sound better.
Yeah.
My claim to fame in sports radio here in this town is I was on the air saying before it was trendy to do so.
Okay.
The Suns should have taken Luka Doncic #1 over DeAndre Ayton, and I was shouting it from the mountaintops, rooftops. I mean, anywhere I went, I will. This will be a nice little bow we'll tie to this story. At the time, when the draft lottery happened and the Suns got the #1 overall pick, I created a little shrine at my desk. I had a picture of Luka, and I had a Post-it note underneath. And you know what it said?
What did it say?
It said, Luka no matter what. Just like in the movie Draft Day, it was Vontae Mack no matter what. I had a little Post-it note under my desk to constantly remind myself of where I stood on this. Luka no matter what. So my draft analysis is pretty good here, pretty solid.